Hello, friends, and welcome to your midweek edition of the Kings of Anglia Ipswich Town podcast. I am Heath. I'm your host. And in the spirit of the show, I'm joined by three fairly mediocre Kings to discuss Ipswich Town today. We've got a lot to talk about. I'm going to start with the man we missed on Monday. I call him my friend. I also call him Hutch Hogan. We found out a little bit about you as well, Hutch, in your absence on Monday. A man who likes to draw himself a warm bath and kick back with an episode or two of Naked Attraction.
Okay, that was discussed. I watched Naked Attraction, and I've only ever watched it in Premier Inn hotels. I don't watch it at home. Don't think I've ever watched it at home.
Seedy.
But it only comes on to the TV when travelling away to watch Ipswich Town, and largely in the Premier Inn with Lenny Henry tucked up next to me.
What is it about it that makes it suitable for watching when you're on your own in a hotel room?
Minimal channel choices. Starts at 11 o'clock, which is around bedtime.
Yeah. You find it eases you into sleep.
Yep. The content of it eases me into sleep.
Did you? I don't know what episode you saw. My wife is a huge fan. I don't watch it as a matter of course, but she said, I've got to show you something. And she duly put me onto a show, which I believe is the most recent episode, which featured what I can only describe as the largest male appendage I've ever seen with my two eyes. Was that the same one that you watched?
It sounds similar to the one that I watched on. Was this Friday night?
I think it must have been Friday night. Yeah, because she showed me over the weekend. Good Lord. Brought tears to the eyes.
Yes. it may well do that.
Yeah. Let's move on. Someone else who occasionally brings tears to the eyes with the beauty of his craft. Stuart, the Dr. Watson. How are you, my rather beefcake friend?
All the better for moving on from that opening conversation. I was fearful that we were heading for deep waters then.
Don't worry,
I pulled everybody concerned that we moved on.
I stopped that digression pretty quickly. I didn't know where it might end up. And finally, of course, the third wheel on this particular KOA bus today, or indeed the fourth, I suppose, technically. The hairy one, the prince of facial features. I guess we've all got facial features, actually. That's not technically correct. But anyway, he's definitely the prince, the prospect, the prodigy. Ross Halls, how are you?
I'm very well. I like Naked Attraction too.
Excellent. Anything else to add to that? Or just a statement of fact?
Just, boobs and all that.
Excellent. Superb. Welcome.
Analysis. Let's move on.
Welcome to the South Bank show. Right then, friends. There's a lot to talk about on today's show. We're going to have an in-depth chat about squad analysis, fan forum. There's going to be a new feature featuring Roscoe turning his hand to being an interviewer. But before we get going, I have an apology to make. On Monday's show, I said that real ale was nonsense, foul, and if you drink it, you're an old man, just weeks from death. I've had quite a lot of complaints about that. My friend Peachmeister, Charlie, come at me as well, saying that's nonsense. You don't know what you're talking about. Friends, it's usually best to ignore what I say. That's certainly the approach that my wife takes. And it turns out I do actually like two real ales. Doom Bar and Ghost Ship, I didn't realise technically were real ales. So I've already been educated. And if you want to educate me further, send me recommendations. Charlie's given me neck oil, I think, from Beaver Town, which I'll be attempting to track down and throw down my neck in short order. Friends, real ale apparently is a thing now. You don't have to be 95 years old and incontinent to sip it. So there we go. I'll be getting involved with that.
What is real ale? Why is it real?
I don't know.
What is fake ale?
I don't know. Any Stewie, are you more educated than I on ale?
I wouldn't say as far as educated, but yeah, I'll have one from time to time. I certainly wouldn't have taken the extreme view that it's all dishwater that you took before. I want you to double down on your opinions. You crumble very quickly. Get a couple of tweets that go, I don't disagree with that. You just want to please all the people all the time.
That's
if you don't like real ale, just say so, my friend. It's fine.
But in fairness, that view is formed by having a couple that literally were tasted like pond water and a kind of, I suppose, a stereotypical view of real ale drinkers as men who sit in pubs all day with flat caps and whippets, which apparently is not now the done thing when it comes to real ale. It's cool. So I'm gonna get involved. I'm always
And so you should, mate. If it's cool, you
absolutely.
need to be there.
I need to be involved. It's a scene that I need to get involved in, and I'm always willing to be educated about anything. So there we go. Real ale. I'm on it, friends. The main thrust of today's show is going to be squad analysis, in the spirit of state of the nation type of stuff. Really, given we've got a new prime minister who's a Norwich City fan, boo hiss. We're not going to talk about politics, but a state of the nation kind of stock take, if you like. Clearly, Town now have their squad set at least until January. And it struck me that it could be quite a good conversation to have. And indeed, Hutchie's kicked the ball off by writing an excellent piece you can go and read now this morning, his thoughts on the Ipswich Town squad. So what we're going to do is spend the next 10, 15 minutes talking about the players that Town have got, where they fit, and ultimately who's going to play overall. So I'm going to invite you, Andy Hutch-Warren, to kick us off with your thoughts, because you penned the piece today. We'll do it in the same way that you did in your piece, i.e. take it position by position, goalkeepers, centre-backs, left side, right side, midfielders, forwards, strikers, whatever. So I guess, how do you want to start it, Hutchie? You be the master of our destination.
I'll give you a couple of general thoughts before we pick. Generally, I think the squad is very strong. Kieran McKenna's right. They have two good, up to the standard players for every position. And in my mind, and I'm sure the minds of many, there's actually a starting 11 emerging. They're all going to get games, but for me, there's a strongest 11 emerging with a couple of exceptions. So it's a squad that should be firmly in the mix.
Okay. Well, shall we kick off then? Do you want to start, Stewie? I mean, goalkeeper is obviously the place to start, and it's also probably the easiest position to have a discussion around in terms of we know exactly what's happening there. Christian Walton is Town's number one, without question. Hladky is his backup. Hutchie has mentioned, I believe, was it last week on the deadline day? You said that one of the things that worries you about the squad, no, there's not many things that worry about the squad, is what happens if Walton gets injured. Do you share that same fear, Watto? Because there's a huge drop-off, isn't there, between Walton and Hladky?
Yes and no, because Christian Walton is 80-plus championship appearances. He's the best in the league I think, by general consensus. He's been outstanding, but let's not forget Václav Hladky was signed to be the number one. He'd just been the best goalkeeper in the league below. He's played in Scotland. Yes, you're right. It would be a big drop-off, but I think he's a very capable understudy there in Václav Hladky. It's not like you'd suddenly be dipping into the under-23s and chucking a kid in goal. So I've quite liked whenever he had a really sticky start to life at Ipswich Town, as did so many players. It was a big ask. Suddenly you'll be especially a goalkeeper, you've got a whole different defence in front of you. It probably wasn't the easiest starts for him. Then along comes Walton. But do you know what? On the odd occasion where he has sort of been called in for the cup or odd occasion, I think he's done quite well to sort of bounce back and do all right. But there's not much of a debate here to be had around the goalkeeper, is it? Ipswich have got the best in the league, and happy days. Hopefully he stays fit.
The big area I see, look, I completely agree. As I said last week, he's a solid goalkeeper. They've got two solid goalkeepers, but the one big area where Walton set himself apart from the keepers of past years is his aerial ability, his ability to come for crosses and catch pretty much everything. That's not a strong suit of Hladky. He's slightly undersized. He's a puncher, more of a catcher, which brings with it slightly more risk. He's a decent puncher, to be fair to him, but he's also that little bit smaller, and that's the one big area of drop off that I worry about. I like this Ipswich squad, but I do genuinely fear that a season-ending Christian Walton injury changes an awful lot. They'll have a good goalkeeper in goal, but they won't have the best goalkeeper in the league anymore, and that's why that worries me a little bit.
You share that same concern, Roscoe?
Yeah, Christian Walton is too good for League One. He's too good for League One. Alanka, he won the Golden Glove. That was last season or 2 seasons ago now. But when you sort of change a goalkeeper out of nowhere, you just don't get the same with Walton. Walton is just unreal. But we shall see. Hopefully Walton's all good. He'll be all good all season, and we don't need to worry about that. But you never know.
Yeah, realistically, you're not going to have an equally good goalkeeper as backup. It's just not viable, is it? You're not going to have anyone close to. You're not going to have a championship standard goalkeeper sitting on your bench week in, week out. I think he's fine as a backup option. He's absolutely fine.
Right, let's move on from goalkeeper. Clearly, Walton, number one with a bullet, and let's hope nothing happens to him over the course of the season. Centre backs then, central defence. I'll read the players out in that position. We can talk about them. So you've got obviously JD, Janoi Donatian, Luke Wolfenden, Edmondson, Richard Keogh, and big Cameron Burgess. As it stands, two of those, Janoi Donatian and Luke Wolfenden, seem to be set in stone. And obviously Burgess has come in for George Edmondson in recent times. Hutchie, do you want to kick us off with your thoughts on this position?
Yeah, as I wrote this morning, it feels like those two that you've mentioned are kind of got the two hands on the shirts. Donatian in particular, because I don't particularly enjoy talking about formation numbers and things like that, but it does feel to me like it's becoming more of a back four at certain times. It felt like that to me at the weekend. There are certain games where it looks more like that, and Donatian's vital to that because he's both the first choice right-sided centre half if there's a three, and the right side and the right back if it's a two, a back central defensive two. So he'd be in there. Wolfenden, I think, has taken it up a level in the last week or so. I've enjoyed him that little bit more, and that leaves three going into one for me at the moment on the left side of either the two or the three, which we can chat about now because there's three good players there. Bouncing around, vying for a spot.
Offer up your thoughts then, Hutchie. At the moment, the incumbent is, in terms of most recent selection, is Cameron Burgess. Obviously, Edmondson, Keogh in discussion there as well. How do you kind of compare those and their relative strengths? Burgess
played really well at Accrington at the weekend, and there's no doubt that there are certain games that suit him. Games like Burton, which he actually didn't play in until making one really good header from a corner to clear it right at the end. But there are certain games that suit him. Balls into the box, he's really good at it. There are other games where Ipswich want to be on the front foot, where you might want a defender that's more on the front foot potentially, and I think Edmondson and certainly Keogh could be that. It's a really interesting one because going into the season, you'd think a really fit, strong George Edmondson would be a lock, but it's not. It's not turned out that way, and he's got a little bit of a fight, and particularly because like kind of looming over all of this is a vastly experienced, decorated championship international performer who could play both Wolfenden's role and Edmondson's. I think Edmondson/Burgess pretty comfortably. So it's interesting. I want to see Edmondson come to the fore and be that guy because that's the future. But he hasn't. So he's left himself vulnerable there.
Well, it's interesting to see where you stand on this, Stuart, Edmondson, because the idea that George Edmondson wouldn't be a nailed-on starter before the start of the season, or indeed last season, would have been slightly fanciful and a bit surprising. Cameron Burgess, we know, has his strengths, but he also has his weaknesses. We've seen him succumb to pace when he's turned, struggle in that regard. How do you see that matchup? Is Burgess literally coming in for games where they're expecting an aerial bombardment and a bit of physical argy-bargy, and Everton comes back in otherwise? How do you see it?
Possibly, yeah. I think that the two games that you've referenced, Burton and Accrington, are small, tight pitches as well. You've Burgess's weakness is probably getting caught high up the pitch, getting turned on a tighter pitch. You're lessening the chance of that happening. At Portman Road, like you say, when perhaps one of your spare man is one of the back three and there's more onus on them joining the attack and building the play, it's not quite for him. So maybe it'll be a bit of horses for courses from McKenna, depending on certain games. Yeah, you're right. Edmondson not being a starter would have been unthinkable going back 6 months ago. I guess his best form came pre-McKenna, really, George Edmondson. I'd say he's the one player that you would say has gone backwards would sound too strong, but he's not hit the same heights under McKenna. I think he looked better in a central defensive 2 than he has done a 3. Maybe not completely naturally suited to the left side of those 3. And then you throw in a really nasty ankle injury, which there's no doubt sort of played its part in a slightly slower start to the season. And you can see kind of where we've ended up with Burgess playing a couple of games recently. Keogh, I still think they're just biding their time and waiting till he's kind of got up to speed with the principles of how this team functions a little bit. And I do feel like, I've said this loads of times, when he gets in, I think he might stay in, because this is a guy with 450 plus championship experiences. He was still rattling them out last season as well. So he's by no means on the scrap heap here. He's not come here to be a cheerleader, I'm sure. So that'll be interesting when he gets his first league start, and then whether he gets his hands on it from there.
It's inevitable that Keogh comes in and becomes a star, because I put him 9th on my list of summer signings. So that is definitely going to happen. Roscoe, George Edmondson, we know because the boys have spoken about it before. Someone like Mick Mills, legend of this parish, believes that Edmondson is not in the right position there. Have you got any thoughts on that, and in terms of who you'd select and how you'd line up that back 3 as it is at the moment?
Fridge. You know what a season he had last year before that injury, of course. But I still don't think he's recovered from that injury. You know, he's recovered in terms of coming back and, you know, he's fit to play, but I think he's still maybe nursing it a little bit. You know, he still doesn't want to maybe go too crazy, because you just don't want to basically have a same injury again. And yes, you know, I think that is maybe his weak side of his game, playing the left side of that back 3. But he's still a very talented player, you know, for this level. But I echo what Stu said. When Richard Keogh gets in the team, I can't see him getting out of the team, because, you know, that many appearances. He's at the end of his career now, so I'm sure he doesn't want to be sitting on the bench, travelling week in, week out, not playing. I'm sure he wants to end his career playing week in, week out. Of course, making his childhood dream of playing for the club, you know, when he was, you know, a ball boy, and, you know, with the academy. You know, that game he played against Northampton, you know, being on the pitch at Porton Road, finally being a Town player, and a very experienced player. He's still got it, you know, even though he's 35, whatever he is now, he's still a very good player. What was the question originally?
How would you line him up? All things being equal, I'm going to ask you all this as we go through the positions. Who would you line up? So at the moment, it's Donatian, it's Wolfie, and it's Burgess in terms of most recent selection.
Yeah, JD is spot. You know, you can't change that. I'll keep Wolfenden. I think Wolfenden he has his moments. You go, oh, what's he doing there? But he's solid for League One. I'm happy with Wolfenden there. And then, yeah, it depends on the opposition sometimes. You know, we've seen Burgess. He starts against the big boys, you know, Accrington and Co, Burton and all that. And I do like Burgess. I think he's definitely proved some of the doubters wrong in terms of, like, you know, he had a few little dodgy moments. But at the moment, you got to start Burgess. I think he's been the main man there at the moment. So that is my back 3.
Allow me, Hutchie, before you give your back 3, to lob a little wild card into the mix. Pin out, throw it in. Greg Lee, could he do the job at left centre back? He's a big, physical, athletic gent. Is there any argument to have a look at him back there, or we simply don't need it?
You like Greg Lee, don't you?
I bloody love Greg Lee. I want to see him start. Play him up front.
I think he could do it. I think he could definitely play that role. But as I think we're talking about 3 players going into one position here. I'm not sure he's quite in that. He's not in that mix, I wouldn't say at the moment. But if they need him to, he could certainly do it. He's the same. I thought Dominic Thompson could do it last season as well. They've got the attributes to do it. Okay.
So what would your 3 be going forward? I appreciate, obviously, it's going to potentially change on opponent, but in terms of the best 3 that you would field, what would it be?
I want to see Donatian, Wolfenden, Edmondson work. That's what I want to see, and I would. Yeah. At the moment, I'd keep going. I'd keep going with that. But Richard Keogh is a real loomer. It reminds me of the Streets of Rage computer game where the evil guy came over with his claws like that. He's
Streets of Rage is unbelievable.
Streets of Rage 2 is the best computer game ever made. And Richard Keogh is Dr. whatever his name is, Dr. X, whatever his name is.
He's old enough to remember it as well, I'd imagine, Keogh.
He's the same age as me, so yeah.
There we go. Roscoe's
got
absolutely no idea what we're talking about with Streets of Rage. No.
And I think Keogh could play the centre. He could play in the middle, and he could play on the left of it as well. So I don't, as much as I think Wolfenden's got, I think he's improved in the last week or so, but he needs to not rest because he's
Richard Keogh, the Luma. That's not a nickname.
Am I right in thinking in the summer when we were chatting about this that we talked about maybe when the music stops that Genoa Donasian might be the one without a chair, and I can't quite remember what the scenario would have been there because Keogh wasn't in the building obviously by that point.
At the time, we talked about Ndaba coming into the left centre back slot, didn't we? And everyone shifting along, and JD, poor old Genoa, getting hoofed out of the team in that way. Clearly, that's not going to happen with Corey now. Do I need to ask what you think, or are you just going to second what Hutchie says, which is normally what happens between you two?
I can see the thinking behind sticking with Edmondson because he's your biggest asset going forwards, and you want to get him back to those levels that we'd seen before, and he's the one that you could kind of, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, if and when you can get promoted, he's the one that hopefully you can go on the journey with you. Richard Keogh for the greatest will is a bit more of a short-term fix going on, but I really don't know. I just broadly agree with Andy that there's probably several players fighting for that left-sided role at the moment. I'm not quite sure who, if anyone, will whether it's going to be a sort of a week in week out back three, or we're going to just see sort of changes. Bit of a rotation system going on there is probably my gut feeling.
Okay, I'm going to stick with you, Stewie, on the left-hand side. Leif Davis, Greg Lee, potentially the best player in this squad. How do you see that shaking up? Because clearly Leif Davis is the £1 million boy. He's the golden goose. He's the man they brought in to be the star on that left-hand side. And you boys have been increasingly impressed with him. So is he the unquestioned starter going forward?
Yeah, I think when you've spent that much money, we're talking about it being £1 million plus. It's near £1.5 million, by the way. So that's a lot of money for a left back at this level. And he's right when he says it's kind of, we talked about it being a hybrid system that I think is morphing more and more towards a 4-2-3-1 with Davis sort of left back with that sort of tucked in inside left forward that leaves a lot of space for Davis to go into. When you've paid that much money for a player, he's got to be the one you stick with. And he's got better and better as the games have gone by. I thought he was right up there in terms of Ipswich's best performers at Accrington last weekend as well. But of course, you've got your boy Greg Lee as a very capable backup, slightly different skill set, both athletic, both strong, but maybe adds a little bit more airily for different types of tests. But Davis is going to play the majority of games as long as he stays fit.
They're well blessed with Lee there. I think Lee's role, he could be part of the substitute unit potentially. He might get the final 15 minutes of games where they might need to see off the kitchen sink a little bit. They've really upgraded that position, really upgraded it from where it was at last season, which was a bit of a merry-go-round with seven players, I think, maybe even 8 used. So real upgrade.
I'm trying so hard not to give Greg Lee a nickname and curse his Ipswich Town career because his name lends itself to quite a few options, but I won't discuss that. I don't want to spend too much time discussing the left or indeed the right side because it's fairly obvious and there's more interesting discussions to be had. So clearly Davis is in ascendancy on the left with Lee as capable backup. Right side, Roscoe. We've got Welsh Jesus, Wes Burns on the right hand side. That's not a nickname. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh no!
I don't know what I've done.
No.
Why did I say that? Why did I do that?
Rewind.
Rewind. Just ignore that. We've got Wesley James Burns on the right hand side, a man who has no nicknames. And then obviously behind him, you've got the likes of Carl Edwards and KVY. Burns is unquestionably, probably one of the first names on the team sheet when he's fit. He's not quite hit the heights so far this season. That's the way it is, though, isn't it? On the right-hand side, KVY, Edwards as backups.
Yeah, not bad backups either. KVY and Carl Edwards. Wes Burns is the guaranteed star. Yeah, he's not hit the heights just yet, but he's only really had half a pre-season. Still early days. I think now everyone else is chipping in with goals and assists. So, he's guaranteed starting, isn't he? Because he's Wes Burns.
Do you know? I'm not as convinced on that.
What?
I'm not as
I like it.
I don't think anyone is untouchable in this team, and George Edmondson is proof of that. We've just had that discussion. As good as Wes Burns was last season, I'm not saying he's been bad this season, but he's hit nowhere near those same heights. And you've mentioned the players that are behind him. There will come a point where McKenna will go, I've got Kyle Edwards, 3 assists against Northampton recently, someone who's played in a bit of Premier League experience and Championship. And there was a time where we talked about, crikey, how have they managed to get Kyle Edwards in League One? And then Kane Vincent-Young, I'd go back a couple of seasons. There was 3 standout players for me at Ipswich, and that was Norwood, Downs and Kane Vincent-Young. I thought were their 3 best players. And I thought he was one of their better players in pre-season, Kane Vincent-Young as well. So, I'm not sure it's as clear cut as Wes Burns. It's his position. Chances are it will be, but I think he's got to go up another couple of gears to see off some of that threat.
Hutchie, anything to throw into the mix there? Can Greg Lee play right side maybe?
No. He'd be my starter. I think he's got extra things to contend with now. I think he's clearly getting that bit more attention. Neither Vincent-Young or Edwards made the bench at Accrington at the weekend, which I thought was interesting. He'd be my starter. I'm not sure. I'm not sure Vincent-Young is going to quite give you what Wes Burns give you. I don't know. It makes me sad to say it, but I'm not sure he does. He's not quite got the strength and the hustle for me. So for me, he'd be the starter, but you can't guarantee. I think Christian Walton is probably the only one that's genuinely sort of guaranteed a spot. I'd probably put Sam Morsey in that as well. But beyond that, there's real options. But I'd be going with Burns.
What a squad. So generally, the consensus here, Davis and Burns, with a small asterisk from the doctor, Stuart Watson. Right then, it gets really interesting now, boys, for the rest of these positions. Let's start with the man you just said is probably the only other kind of nailed on first team on the team sheet sort of vibe. Sam Morsey, the captain, the super skipper, the leader in central midfield. At the moment, he's paired with Lee Evans, and that's going bloody well. But in terms of the other options in midfield, this is where it gets really interesting. So you've got Panuche Kamara, one of the best players in League One, by all accounts, over the last season or so. Dominic Ball, Championship pedigree experience and a bloody unit as well. And then the young buck, the prodigy, the prospect at Ipswich Town, Cameron Humphreys. Yet he's slightly more of a prospect than you, Roscoe. Different courses for different horses. But yeah, in terms of football, I'd suggest Cameron Humphreys probably more of a prospect than you. This is really interesting to me, boys, because particularly with Kamara, you don't buy someone like Kamara with everything that he's done and his kind of reputation in the game in League One level, unless you're going to play him, surely. You don't just bring him in as a backup. So I'm really interested to see where you think it all comes out in the wash here, Hutchie.
I think he might have to get used to being a bit of a backup, if I'm honest. I'm very happy with Morsey and Evans. If Evans wasn't available, I'd probably be turning to Dominic Ball in the deeper role, because Kamara's big attribute is his athleticism, his running. Not really required from the Lee Evans role. That's the sweeping across the pitch, getting on the ball, moving the ball around, jumping on loose balls kind of role. So pretty simple for me. Morsey and Evans all the way. Let's dictate the way that Ipswich play. Don't feel a need to be shaking that up particularly.
Okay.
Ball, I think Ball will have his moments where he's needed. He obviously brings something a little bit different in terms of maybe a little bit more muscle. But Kamara may well see more action higher up the pitch, I think, rather than in this particular conversation.
Did you see, as an aside, did you see Kamara's first interview with the club? He looked incredibly nervous, and I just wanted to give him a big hug. Clearly a bloody ruddy, bloody nice bloke. I'm very happy to be at Ipswich Town. Stewie, how do you see that centre mid scenario playing out?
I think it's the strongest area of their squad. when you look at those options that you've rattled off, Morsey, Ball, and Evans are genuine bona fide championship players with seasons of experience under their belt. Kamara, they've signed one of the division's best performers in that position over the last couple of seasons, and then Humphreys as well. I think long term they see Kamara more as a box to box number 8 type, but I think short term, Andy's right. I think the Aluko injury maybe just tipped them into that. If they were umming and ahhing about it, he's probably more likely to be part of that. I wouldn't say rotation, but part of those sort of, with the 5 subs now, someone who can come on and play their part higher up the pitch. But it's Morsey and Evans all day long at the moment, because Evans is in their top 3 best performers at the start of this season comfortably. So there's no need to be changing that for the foreseeable future. That's for sure.
Is it worth a small pause for a Lee Evans appreciation discussion? Because last season, certainly he kind of divided opinion amongst Ipswich Town fans in terms of his use, his ability, his movement, and now we're singing his praises. What you say, Evans has been among the top 3 performers, Stewie. What do you like about Lee Evans? What does he bring to the team?
Facilitates others. He's just that sort of player's player, and in the same way that it's always that position is probably the least glamorous. That sort of, Cole Scoo's always talked about, as long as my teammates appreciate the job I'm doing, that's all that matters. He's never going to be the one that scores a ton of goals, hat-trick against Doncaster aside, or necessarily provides that sort of last killer pass or whatever, but he allows Sam Morsey to go and do the job that he's doing now, getting into the box later, allows wide men and fullbacks to get forwards. But, I think I was quite consistent last season in saying that he was a big miss during his injury towards the back end of last season. I think people sort of underestimated how much of an absence he was in the second half of last season, and that's starting to be noticed now.
Okay, let's move the conversation on, Rossi. Still with an eye on midfield, but also moving towards the attacking midfield, because I really do think that has to be one of the reasons they brought Kamara in, because he ticks so many boxes of what McKenna wants, doesn't he? And so he's athletic, he's versatile, he runs all day long, dynamic, and clearly now there is an injury in that attacking midfield area. So I'll just run through the options as it stands going forward, that attacking midfield spot. Connor Chaplin, Marcus Harness, clearly 2 very informed players at the moment. And you've got TJJ, the big cat, and Sonny Aluko is obviously injured. You have to throw Panucci Kamara into that mix, I'd imagine. How do you see that whole kind of scenario playing out?
Well, Marcus Harness and Connor Chaplin between have got 10 goals. So
is that official now? Has Chaplin got the other one?
No.
He has.
He has, yeah, that is official.
Given?
Yeah, I've had that confirmed by someone at the club. He has both those goals from Accrington last season. If you have a look at all the official reports, BBC, Sky, and everything, it has all been amended now to a Connor Chaplin brace.
There we go then, Roscoe. So yes, as you were saying, two players with 5 goals already to their name this season. On you go.
We've got so much threat there. I know Luco is a shame about Luco. It's probably not coming. I put him as my MVP this season, and can I change that now because he's injured for like 3 months?
No.
Oh, damn it. He'll come back and he'll be strong. But just to have the option, like Connor Chaplin came off the bench to bring on Connor Chaplin against Accrington Stanley, and he goes on to score 2 goals. Connor Chaplin was a threat in the box for a corner, and he's only little, isn't he, Connor Chaplin? And I want to give Lee Evans some praise, so I want to go back to midfield quickly because he has been fantastic. Set pieces have been a bit iffy, but that was a good set piece against Accrington. But yeah, Chaplin, Harness, Tyrese John Jules, I think he struggled against Accrington. He was very physical against Accrington's side, but he's another good young player who's going to bring some creativity. And then, Kamara, I think his opportunity there. If he's not playing in the midfield role, he can definitely come and be a part of the attacking role. We just got a very good, I know midfield is strong, but attacking midfield is very strong as well.
Yeah, the whole squad, incredible, isn't it? So are we all agreed then, from what you're telling me? Morsey and Evans, midfield, Chaplin and Harness as the kind of 2 number 10s. Is that consensus starting picks?
when we talked about people being nailed on starters, you've talked about Walton and Morsey, and he's mentioned. I think Connor Chaplin's getting towards that territory at the moment. I think he'd probably be the next in terms of first names on the team sheet. Harness we saw dropped once, didn't we? For a recent home game, which was interesting. Not sure that will happen too much more going forwards. Those two are in the box seat big time, aren't they, at the moment?
All of which brings us on to striker, boys, which is one of the big discussions the whole summer long. Town need a striker. They've got to bring this 20-goal a season striker in. We need a 20-goal a season striker to get promoted. As it stands, they've got Freddie Ladapo, they've got Gasson Ahadmi, and they've got Caden Jackson, Hutchie. Do Town actually need, does any side actually need a 20-goal a season striker? Is a striker in McKenna's system someone who has to score loads of goals? Or is the striker there to do a lot of the water carrying and hard work and pressing? And maybe it's not really that important, given you've got players like Chaplin, Harness, Morsey, Wes Burns, who are going to score a decent number of goals.
They need to score a decent number of goals. I think I wrote this morning a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. I think if they could sort of total 25 between them, I think that would be absolutely fine. But that would require Chaplin, Harness to get close to 20. One of them pushing to 20. Burns, you'd want scoring double figures again. But they need to contribute goals, but they do need to contribute a lot more. I think Freddie, a lot more than goals as well. We saw Freddie Ladapo change the game at Accrington on Saturday, just coming off the bench and bringing that little bit more control to things. And that's really important. They just add some control in the final third, put a foot on the ball, work extremely hard as the first kind of line of defence and pressing and everything like that. So there's more to being a striker, not just in Kieran McKenna's football, but in everybody's football in football these days. But you are going to have to score some goals as well. That is part of the job description.
But Ladapo,
sorry, Mark, I was just having a little look at the League One top goal scorers last season while we were having that chat. Will Keane was top with 26, Ross Stewart on 24, but then 4 of the top 6 all had top goal scorers under 20. Smith at Rotherham was on 19, but then Sheffield Wednesday, Plymouth and Wickham, their top goal scorers were all on 16 strikers, Gregory, Hardy, Vokes. So it just goes to show that it's not a prerequisite to have a 20-goal season striker to be successful at any level, I don't think.
Yeah, if that's what... Look, teams can be very successful with a hugely scoring striker, can't they? Of course they can, but if he is your main source of goals, you're in trouble if he's not around. So I think I'd probably rather have this Ipswich team actually with strikers who I think can score goals and 2 number 10s in Harness and Chaplin who are proper sharpshooters. They can score goals. They look a threat. So I'd probably rather have this makeup of a team than one that's kind of plugging away. Like Cole Stockton, for example. How many did he score last year, Stu? Have you got that list? Is it 23, 24?
Yeah.
It's no guarantee that if you've got one of those, you're going to be at the top end of the league, is it? It's
yeah, both Morecambe and Cheltenham had 20-goal season strikers.
Yeah.
Alfie May on 23, Stockton on 23 as well. So there you go.
It's one of these things that just gets trotted off the tongue, though, isn't it? You need a 20-goal a season striker. It's like a mythical thing. Promotion sides need a 20-goal a season striker. Hutchie, Freddie Ladapo's in the box seat, right? He's going to be probably the starter most of the time. And Ahadmi, I think, could be a really interesting option off the bench, basically to cause chaos for the last half an hour, 20 minutes, put himself around, knock a few people to the floor and see what kind of problems he can create.
Ladapo would still be he's got the number 9 shirt, he'd still be my starter. I think Caden Jackson is, we've seen that McKenna likes to use Caden Jackson in certain games and we know the attributes that Caden's got. He's the other guys have got some speed, but Caden's got that next level of pace that can stretch teams. And problem for Caden is, we can get into the positions. He can stretch. He can do all of that. But we saw at Accrington on Saturday that the one chance he got to do that, he didn't take, and that's what he would need to do just to make sure that he's still going to be picked for those games where McKenna thinks he's going to be needed. But yeah, Ladapo would be the main man for me, and I see a lot in Ahadme that means that they've got something similar, albeit with a few different tweaks, but something similar stylistically, so they don't have to completely change the style to which this team's playing, dependent on the striker.
Okay, I'm going to come to you for final thoughts, Stewie. Roscoe, Ladapo, would he be your striker? Because a lot, I'll say a lot. Everything I've seen from him, I've liked, but obviously strikers need to score goals, and he hasn't really done that yet. So people have been saying we need a striker. What do you think about Ladapo?
I like him. So he's starting for me. That's all I've got to say.
Fair play. Watto, your work husband started us off with a general opening thought on the squad, finishes with your closing conclusions, if you like, on Ipswich Town squad.
Just to wrap up on strikers, Ladapo is on paper their best striker. Let's not forget this is someone who's played in the Championship, that has scored goals. He's got close to that 20-goal figure before in this league before. I think 18 for Plymouth, consistently in double figures for Rotherham at this level. The other two strikers can't hold a candle to those records. You know, Hadme's at the start of his career. Jackson hasn't hit those sort of numbers. So, yeah, I think Ladapo has to be seen as the main man up front. Closing statement on the squad. It's a good squad, isn't it? You know, two players plus for every position. It's getting to the stage with the two extra signings on deadline day that I was starting to think it's almost looking a bit too big, and it can cause you some problems. Obviously, they've just tried to future-proof it in case there's another Luco injury or two on the horizon, which you never know. But with the 5 substitutes rule, I think we're going to keep looking. But we look back on this season and think, actually, the 5 subs rule at this juncture with the squad that Ipswich have had is going to really, really benefit them when looking at those players that we've just gone through.
Okay, let's draw a line under that then, boys. A good 40-minute squad analysis discussion there. A little bit mischievous now, Hutchie. Turn to something a little bit with a wistful look in the eye. Things happening in the Premier League. Tommy Tuchel kicked out at Chelsea. He had the aggressive handshake. Looks like Graham Potter of Brighton could well be next in at Chelsea. When the odds come out for a new Brighton manager, a certain Mr. K Money, K Mac, Kieran McKenna could well be in there, because that's what bookies do. What do you reckon?
I think it's going to be an obvious conversation. I think it's already started amongst Ipswich fans, hasn't it? About, I would say no. I don't think it is one that they would go. The League One to the Premier League is a huge jump for someone to take. At this point, obviously, Kieran's got pedigree beyond League One, hasn't he? But I would say he's got to get a promotion on his CV to then be being looked at for these jobs. But it will happen if he keeps being successful here. This is a situation we've not been in with Ipswich for a very long time in terms of managers being looked at from elsewhere. So I'd be very surprised if it came at this point, but it's maybe something to get used to going forward.
It's a kind of side effect of success, isn't it?
Yeah,
Any kind of
it's a
young
good thing.
manager. Yeah, it's a good thing. You can't really remember the last time a kind of sitting Ipswich Town manager was linked to jobs further up the divisions, particularly in the Premier League. So it's something we're going to have to get used to if McKenna continues to have success at Ipswich Town, because he's an exciting, dynamic, new school young manager, isn't he?
I think if you'd have gone back probably as recently as 5 years ago, there's not a chance that I don't think a Premier League club takes a punt, inverted commas, on someone like McKenna. Football is all about fashions, and we're in an era now of young, up-and-coming, intelligent, homegrown managers. We've gone through sort of a phase where, you know, everyone went and got Borussia Dortmund 2's manager in Germany, and at the moment we're in an era of the young English coach with you know, who's got all their badges and everything. So Brighton have kind of done it with Potter once. It's not surprising, but not impossible. And I know McKenna sat there at the fans forum on Monday and said all the right things once again about, I picked Ipswich for a reason. I wanted a project, and I think, you know, he won't want to leave this too early, but the proof will be in the pudding when something like a Brighton, and I'm not saying it does, falls on his doormat all of a sudden. That's a different conversation, because managers are no different to players. They've got their own careers to think about, and Kieran McKenna is at the very start of his, and I don't think Brighton or anyone else would look at him necessarily as just a League One manager, because he's been Manchester United's assistant manager. He's worked with Jose Mourinho. He's got all of that on his CV. So I think it probably is a little bit too soon for that move at the moment. But a high-flying Brighton in the Premier League is probably just in that wheelhouse where it's could just test the waters a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't.
Yeah, we're going to have to get used to it, though, aren't we? Let's stick with you, Stewie, because you mentioned the fans forum there. We should reflect on that, because that's happened since we last spoke. You covered that on Monday night. You've done a video, actually, with Roscoe in terms of takeaway. So if you want a more in-depth chat about what you made of that, go and watch that. It's on our YouTube channel. But fans forum, Stewie, anything to kind of bring up and mention there?
I won't go into all the various bullet points of the night. I'll let people go back and look at our live coverage and various stories that we've done and a standalone video. But what I will just say is what a tangible feel-good factor there was in the room. I think every question started with a thank you to the panel. Thank you to Kieran. Thank you to Mark Ashton for, in my view, slightly overused phrase over the years, giving us our club back. But a lot of thanks and praise to the panel. There was some nice stories. There was a dad who stood up and just said, look, I take you back a few years. I used to, took my young son, and he turned to me one day in the midst of a boring 0-0 draw and said, Daddy, have I been a good boy today? And yes. Can we go home then? And he said, and now he's begging me to go every week. And there were multiple other stories of people that said, I gave up my season ticket in the 2000s and I'm back for the first time. And real feel-good factor about the evening. It was good. Yeah,
and just continuing the theme of communication, the communication's been top-notch, hasn't it, since Ashton's come in? And these are great things to have for fans. Right then, new feature time. Now, I listen, as I'm sure many of you do, and if you don't, you should do. You should listen to the Tractor Girls Talk podcast with our very own Roscoe, an innovator, a forward thinker, an exciting planner of new things. Roscoe has introduced a new feature on that very podcast this season called 10 Questions With, whence you ask I believe it's the same 10 questions, isn't it, to a variety of personalities around the Ipswich Town women's side. And I was listening to it and I thought, you know what? I like this. This could work on our pod. So I've brought it in. We're gonna slightly change it because it's going to be different questions. But the idea is each of us is going to take turns asking questions of the other kings, Mike Bacon included, which is going to be almost pay-per-view TV when that happens. And we're going to kick it off today, Roscoe, because you are the originator of the idea. You're going to be the questioner. And I think because you've already interviewed Stuart Watson about his life and times, and the next most interesting person is clearly Andy Warren that we need to hear from. So I'm going to invite you now for the next 10 minutes, max, to quiz Warren. 10 questions with Andy Warren. Over to you, my friend.
Okay, then. Well, thank you very much for that praise, Heathy. It's not the most original idea ever, because I'm sure everyone has done 10 questions with and all that stuff, but it's just a nice little way to get to know your guest, get to know the kings, and for the listeners, I hope you enjoy it, ladies and gentlemen. So actually, let's get right into it. Now, the first question is about your name. So if you had to change your name, what would your new name be? Like Andy Warren. Andrew is a nice name, of course, but if you had an opportunity, yeah, well done, Mum and Dad. But if you could change your name, what would it be?
Probably Adolf Hutchler.
Yeah.
If I'm on it, yeah, just cut to the chase.
You just don't get kids called Adolf these days, do you? It doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, it doesn't happen. Yeah, I'll just cut to the chase and go with Mark's suggestion of Adolf Hutchler, which would serve me absolutely fine, I'm sure. No issues there.
You'd certainly get noticed.
Or just have we mentioned on the pod about your mate who changed his name before? think we might
Probably.
have done.
I can tell you again if you want. He had to change
Yeah.
it. He had to change it back, sadly, for his wedding. But I had a friend of mine, Sam, good friend, went to school with him, who for a significant period of his life had the middle name Egg Mayonnaise. His name was Sam Egg Mayonnaise Baker.
This was a drunken bet, was it? What's the?
I can't even remember what the bet was, but he clearly lost it. Loves eggs. Changed his name to Sam Egg Mayonnaise Baker for a prolonged period. Changed it back to get married though.
Shame. Should have stuck with it.
Yeah,
Roscoe.
yeah.
Roscoe,
Yeah.
sorry, we've jumped all over that. Question 2.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Now you sort of spoiled it in the green room, but the next question is favourite fruit. I like fruit, and I want to know what is Andy's favourite fruit. What are you going for, Andy?
Sorry for spoiling that. My favourite fruit is mango. I invite you to ask any further questions
Why?
because it's tasty and juicy and very, very nice. Stuart Watson likes mango. He asked me to feed him some in the car on the way home on Saturday night, and I refused to do it because that's odd. But mango is a very nice fruit.
I can't imagine anyone doesn't like mango.
You happy? Happy with that? You okay?
Am
with
I
it?
happy?
Yeah.
I'm good with it. Yeah, I love mango. I'd probably draw the line like you at a hand feeding Watto in the car.
Do you remember when Ross discovered oranges? He went through a stage of self-discovery with food. Do you remember when we was back in the studio
Yeah.
a few years ago, and he'd just come in and go, "Do you know what? I've just realised I like oranges."
It was oranges. There was prawns.
Prawns, yeah.
There's another one I can't remember now. But yeah, it was an exciting time in young Ross's life. That voyage of self-discovery.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, I like fruit very much so. I'll have some more fruit today. Now it's time for Would You Rather, Andy.
Oh no.
No, it's easy. And sort of talking about baths and all that. Would you rather have a bath or a shower?
I would rather have a bath. Do you feel like you're getting to know me much more now?
Yeah, mangoes, baths. Yeah,
Still having the lunchtime bath on a working day?
No, mate, that will skyrocket the energy bill. That's had to go. Although if the incoming Norwich supporting Prime Minister just chucks a load of money at it, maybe I can get back in the bath at 12:30 on a Thursday afternoon.
Stick on an episode of Naked Attraction.
Only in the Premier Inn, mate. Only in the Premier Inn.
The man's got to have a code.
yeah.
Well,
And then
you
of
know,
course, when
Rossi-
it gets to winter, you know, you do get a bit chilly, don't you? I know you put the heating on, but you fancy a little bath, a little bubble bath. Do you have bubbles in your bath and all that? You've got a rubber ducky and all that.
Rubber ducky. I've got a lot of rubber ducks in the bathroom. My daughter's got lots. Don't use them. I will put a little bit of bubble bath in. The Muscle Relax one from Sainsbury's, if you're asking, in the purple thing. Put a little bit in. But I've whenever I run a bubble bath, put a bit of bubbles in the bath, it always just creates loads of bubbles at the tap end. I try my best just to swirl it around and spread them out across the bath, but it just creates this massive mound of bubbles underneath the taps where I want it over me, covering me from the neck down.
What a visual.
Oh.
Can I ask supplementary questions, Rossi, while we're on the bath theme?
Yeah.
Hutchie, do you like candles? Do you listen to some classical FM or something like that? Really sink in and relax?
No candles. I quite often listen to a little bit of music or watch something, but I have a bath in the dark. I won't have any lights on in there.
Okay. We really are learning things about you.
We are. Next question it's from the original Track the Girls Talk 10 question with it is, what is the one item you can't live without? And now I asked this to my girlfriend Sasha, and she said it's very broad, Ross. One item, it could be anything, because obviously water and food and all that you can't live without that. If you don't eat that, you die. But what is the one item you can't live without?
Dishwasher. I'm not washing up dishes. I'll wash up. I'll save washing up for items with non-stick stuff because you do not put your non-stick items in the dishwasher. But I'm I don't need to be washing up all the plates as well because I haven't got enough sideboard area. So I'll go dishwasher, but still wash up all the big pans.
Okay then.
You really
Well, I
do
like
know
washing
me
up, by the
now.
way.
This is getting to the heart of me. This is
Your essence. We are finding out what makes you tick.
We're getting really deep now, though, boys.
Oh no.
Really deep now.
Oh no.
So, what is the hardest thing you had to overcome, Andy? Oof, deep.
Pull up the psychiatrist couch, have a lie down.
I've had a very easy life. I won't lie to you. It's been a smooth road. Some bumps along the way, but a pretty smooth road. There are people out there facing much bigger challenges than me at the moment. But I would say something I've had to overcome, and we are going to get deep here. Shyness. Used to be quite shy. Didn't like talking to people that I didn't know. Didn't enjoy sort of putting myself out to do things. And a big memory of that involves Mike Bacon, actually, because back in the day when I was probably maybe 15, 16, I did some work experience at the East Anglian Daily Times. And I met Mike for the first time, and I was so intimidated by him. I sat opposite him for a week. I got the impression he didn't have an awful lot of time for work experience kids. Little did he know that 20 years later we'd be like this. But I had to make some phone calls and stuff, and I always waited until he was on the phone to somebody else to make my phone calls, to like interview people and speak to people, because I was just so nervous of doing it, because he's that intimidating. And I thought he was watching me and judging me. But over time, I've got over that. And it's important to communicate with people, kids. Don't just email people all the time. Talk to them, ring them, talk. It'll help you.
Just clip that up. We'll send that off to the awards panel. Lovely.
Are you wiping tears from your eye there, Mike?
I am, mate. Yeah, exactly what I hoped for from this feature. I'd imagine Mike was happy you were there, Hutchie, because there was now someone shorter than him on the sports desk.
I'm taller than him.
Were you then, though?
Yeah, I've been this height since I was 15. I've not grown.
This is great stuff. On you go, Rossi.
Changing a bit of the mood here. Now, if you were arrested with no explanation, what would your friends and family assume you had done?
It could be quite dark. But it's not going to be quite dark. I think they would assume it was something absolutely pathetic, like failure to pay council tax, not registering on the electoral roll, bin vandalism, something ridiculously stupid that escalated too far. Either that or being a spy.
You have, of course, actually been arrested at gunpoint, Hutchie. So that's a life experience you've had.
That identity theft that was for.
Yeah.
So maybe that again.
Fair enough. There we go.
He's gone and stolen Adolf Hitler's name, isn't he?
Is that a good spy? Is that a good spy name, or is that like a bit obvious?
Red flags. Yeah.
Can you try when you next have a road trip? Can you try checking into the hotel as Adolf Hitler? Just see what happens.
Or at the very least, when you get a coffee at Starbucks, give that as your name that they have to write on the cup. Just try it out. It's a good way of trying out a new name, just because then they have to read it out and you see if you feel comfortable with it.
I could say, what can I say? Just like Adolf or Addy for short, and see which one they go with. That would say a lot about them as well.
I like it. Okay, then. Time to talk about your attributes, Andy. What is your best attribute?
That is a glorious word to say in a Suffolk accent, isn't it?
Attribute.
Calm. The older I've gotten, the more I've been happy to be quite calm. I like that. / boring. There's a fine line. But yeah, I think I nestle on a nice play there. That or my calves.
Yeah.
Eyelashes.
I feel like they're regressing a little bit, and they're not actually that helpful, mate, because they're very heavy, and they do pull my eyelids down, which don't give me the biggest
Do you
field.
get tired just blinking?
It's not tiredness; it's field of vision. Like, they do genuinely kind of drag my eyelids down and impact on my eyesight a little. So I do have to kind of try and keep them up, which brings a real stress. Not as much stress as the sweaty back, which I'm so glad the sweaty back season is over, by the way. That's the lengths that I went to kind of avoid that were pretty spectacular. So
I was assuming when Ross asked what you'd had to overcome, that would be right up there on the list.
Yeah, I did consider that. Like, I was taking ice packs to games this season. I was cycling down with like Stu can attest to this. I had an ice pack shoved down my back while sat in my seat at Portman Road. While I cycled down, I had an ice pack up against my back. It was brilliant. And it's so good. And I'll be doing it again next year.
Okay, then. Swiftly move on to a bit of dollar. Boom, boom, boom. What is the first thing you would do if you won £1 million, $1 million, €1 million, whatever? Doesn't matter.
Put every penny on Sam Morsey to score against Cambridge this weekend.
Fair enough. It's your money. Your money. Now, what is something that doesn't really smell great, but you keep wanting to smell it anyway?
I found this really really difficult because that just means that I think it smells great. So I'm just going to say here, the sport of speedway, all of it. I love the rubber, I love the methanol, I love the sweat. And that's just sitting next to Mike Bacon while watching it, which I'm going to do tonight. The smell of speedway. Do you want me to say something like dog poo here, don't you? Is that's basically what you wanted?
No. I like the smell of petrol.
Yeah.
Yeah, but is that just generally accepted to be good though?
Yeah.
Because I would go, I do love the smell of petrol, but is that too? Is it just generally accepted to be good?
I think so. Okay, then. Big question to end. And I'll put it to myself as well. Hutchie, what was your first impressions of me?
I've had to really think about it because I'll be completely honest, mate. I've got absolutely no recollection of the first time I met you or my opinion of you. But I very quickly came to the opinion about you that you are rubbish with money. Because in our old office, we used to have this sandwich guy come round with his overpriced little sandwiches and flapjacks. They were good. But you spent so much money on that sandwich, man, every single day. And I think that is my first memory of you. Now you're spending thousands a month on failed driving tests.
Tests.
Yeah, sorry, we've not reached that point yet because practical tests are twice as expensive, aren't they?
Yeah.
If not more. So that's a new point. Sort it out. You might have sorted it out. So I don't know what's happened to that sandwich man. I'm not sure that COVID was particularly kind to the office to office traveling sandwich man in terms of his business. But are you still in touch? He's like,
No.
You seem to have quite the bond.
Yeah, I think I probably wasted a lot of time just speaking with him. And I'm probably looking over my shoulder and, oh God, the boys thinking, God, come on, Ross, you've got to work here. What are you doing? But he just likes to chat. He likes to chinwag. But nice sandwiches, nice flapjacks. Very good.
Mate, he loved you. He loved you. I think you were paying his electricity bill even then.
If I remember correctly, he came over and you I think we'd been saying to you, come on, Ross, you're a young man, you need to start saving here. If you want to start thinking about sort of getting a car and a house, you say £5 a day, and we finally got it through to you, and you was like, I'm holding firm today. You didn't buy one, and he just sidled over at the end of his shift and slid you a free sandwich for loyalty. It's like a drug dealer, just making sure you couldn't beat your habit.
Yeah. And then next day, I then went up and got myself a sandwich. I went, couldn't stop. I was back.
COVID saved you there. It did get you out of that habit. Every
now
cloud.
I'm addicted to the bakery around the corner from me now. So, and yeah, not good. But there we go.
What are you getting from the bakery?
Something called, what are they called again? I get flapjack, of course, but there's something else I get. A paradise slice, it's called. A paradise slice.
What's a
Very
paradise
nice.
Slice? What's in
It's
there?
like a spongy, got like a nice little cherry inside, bit of sugar on top. Just nice. It's nice balance. It's nothing. It's not too rich. It's just
Nice
just right.
balance. Nice.
Yeah, nice balance bakery treat.
I
There we
feel like we've learned a lot, obviously about Hutchie, but also about Roscoe from those questions and the nature of what he wanted to ask. And I'm now intrigued by a paradise slice, Ross. You need to buy me one of those. There we go then. That's the end of our first 10 questions with. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. We'll make a draw on Monday's show as to who will be the questioner and the questionee next Thursday. Of course, there is a midweek game to discuss next week as well. Finally, friends, after that successful launch of that new feature, we have to talk about Cambridge United at Portman Road this weekend and discuss, of course, £1 million picks. Cambridge United, a side picked as a dark horse by our very own Roscoe, our very own David Frost there, and picked for relegation by the big poor sign, Mike Bacon. They've started pretty well, boys. They're in the top 6, and they've got a pretty decent record actually against Ipswich Town. They've not played him a lot, but obviously they won at Portman Road earlier this year, ending effectively the playoff push for Kieran McKenna. How are we feeling about this one, Stewie? Cambridge United, on paper, people will say it's the game that Town will win pretty easily. What do you reckon?
In general, as an occasion, buzzing. Can't wait for it again. At the moment, every home game feels like an occasion. 25,000 tickets sold already. So it's going to be another big bumper crowd. As I said, that sense, that crackle of anticipation in the air at the moment. I think as early as like Monday, Tuesday, people are building up to the weekend already. The fact it's a double home header, Saturday, Tuesday, always feels like a really special moment in seasons for me. Ipswich haven't been able to do the sort of back-to-back home wins Saturday, Tuesday for quite some time now, and I just think that could really supercharge the momentum. At the moment, it's cautious optimism. If you go and win 2 home games in the space of 4 days, then that would become genuine belief and confidence around both internally and externally, I think.
Yeah. Cambridge United, they've got a player nominated for League One Player of the Month in Sam Smith, not the singer. Scored, I think he's got 4 goals last month, including a hat-trick against Burton. And players formerly of this parish, Hutchie, in Jack Lancaster and Diggers. Paul Digby has gone on to become something of a stalwart at the Abbey Stadium. By way of segueing into a prediction, what do you make of this game ahead of your £1 million picks?
Yeah, they lost at home to Cambridge last season. Need to improve on. They've done such a good job so far this season on improving on things that they didn't do well last season. Almost every game, they did it again at Accrington. They lost there last season, won there this time. It's just improvement. They won at Forest Green, having not beaten a promoted side. They drew with Bolton when they only lost to them at home last season. So everything is improving. There was a 13-point gap between Ipswich and the playoffs last season, and they pretty much closed that already. Kind of, if you think about it in that way. And this is another big one to try and do that. From memory, Ipswich, had some decent moments in there, but I think Tom Carroll played in that game. Is my memory of it? I think that's my memory of it. Is realizing that I didn't think Tom Carroll really looked like he was enjoying football anymore. And they worked the ball but couldn't find the goal. So really want to go and see them win this one and just tick off another thing and keep on moving forward. But you have to go into these games feeling confident that they are, because all the evidence that's come before it is that things are going well, and should be another really good afternoon. Hopefully they can convert that into 3 more points.
Stu said an interesting thing on Monday's pod when we start to talk about this game is that because Cambridge have started quite well, they're in fifth place in the league at the moment. That could actually be a good thing for Town, that they may come to Portman Road with more ambition than perhaps they would normally.
Look, I think Cambridge at this point won't be sitting there thinking that we're going to be challenging for automatic promotion, but they'll be buoyed by that. They're not gonna the players. They're not going to be in the mindset of going to places and grinding out points. They'll be coming with confidence, and confidence can bring openness, can't it? And if it's like that, it would suit Ipswich. I'm expecting it to be quite open. I quite like Mark Bonner and what he's done at Cambridge. And it's definitely veering towards the Ross Hall's sort of end of that prediction rather than the Mike Bacon one, isn't it? They're definitely more of a dark horse than a relegation candidate. So I think it should be a really good game.
Just a couple of things to mention. Cambridge's away form has not been great, although they sit fifth in the table. They took one hell of a beating at Pompey 4-1 earlier in the season. They lost to Oxford away as well. Got a point at Charlton. Lost heavily at Southampton in the EFL Cup as well. Excuse me, that was at home. I do apologise. And in terms of possession, I think I heard a stat that says Cambridge have got the 4th lowest possession stat in League One. So maybe they're going to be comfortable out of possession at Portman Road, because you'd imagine Town are going to boss the possession. Give us your £1 million pick then, Hutchie.
I've got 3.
Yep.
If you'll indulge me. Morsey to score. Do you want to give me odds as we go, or do you want to do them all at the end?
Morsey to score, I'll give you the standard 8-1.
Standard, 50 grand, thank you. 4 or more goals in the game.
Cambridge have been scoring goals a lot, haven't they? As well as conceding. And they've got Sam Smith, who I said is pretty well in form. So will they score? Will Town score loads? I'm going to give you... I'll give you 15-1 on that.
Okay. Have a little 50 grand on that as well. 50. And then this one's a bit more abstract. I think come Monday's podcast, we are going to be talking about a moment where Janoi Danassian could or should have scored a goal. It's a bit abstract. We'll have to be the judge of it afterwards. He's not going to score.
That's the bet.
Yeah.
Janoi Danassian will get a whiff of a goal.
Yep.
Okay. Right. Well, you won't be discussing it on Monday because you're not here. But in terms of that bet, Janoi Danassian's never scored. Has he ever scored a senior goal in football? He has.
One.
But obviously,
I think he has one.
Not for Ipswich Town. I'll give you. That's not the same as scoring, though, is it? We're saying he's going to have a whiff. A hint of a goal.
It's a serious conversation, not just he was on the edge of the box and the crowd shouted shoot and he didn't. Like,
all right.
Not a gilt-edged chant. We're not talking Morecambe here, but just a genuine discussion point was, Janoi nearly scored.
I'll give you 33-1 on that.
We'll have 10 grand on that, please.
Excellent. And finally, what is your prediction? Which is not a bet, just a prediction.
3-1 Ipswich.
That is exactly what I said in my preview ahead of these games. I said 3-1 Town. Stewie of House Watson, what are you saying?
First goal, massive. If Ipswich can start fast and get that breakthrough, I think it will be comfortable. If they don't, could be a bit of a parking of the bus and lots of possession, bit of frustration. But I think they will get that early breakthrough. And 2-0.
3-1, 2-0. Roscoe.
I've gone for 2-0 as well. As Stu said, get the goal first. Happy days. Town fans leaving the ground happy and finally beating Cambridge after last year's games against them.
So we're all saying win. Fantastic. Let's hope we're all right to varying degrees of success. And let's hope we are talking about Janoi Danassian. What happens if he actually has scored, Hutchie? Is that still the same bet?
No.
Okay, so we're just saying
no.
A whiff.
Yeah, I think that would be a completely different discussion, wouldn't it? I would say no. I think it's void if he actually achieves it.
Absolute scenes if Janoi scores at Portman Road.
Oh yeah, big time.
Absolutely tremendous. Right then, friends, it's been something of an epic.
On the subject of bets, sorry, I know we're dragging this out, and Andy was keen to make sure that there was some sort of punishment in place. If I said I'd guaranteed Ipswich will finish in the top 6. Andy wanted to add a bit of jeopardy to it.
Got to have, mate. Can I stop you? You can't just make these things without without some jeopardy? Because I guarantee that Stu's gonna eat 6 pies at the weekend, and then he doesn't. What happens? Nothing. So
Okay, well we've
deliver.
come up with the jeopardy now. As the teams came out the other day, I don't know how we got onto this, but we decided that the punishment should be for the final game of the season. I should be one of the mascots that comes out full kit, maybe shorts pulled up Jimmy Bullard style. I don't know, but holding hands with probably Connor Chaplin would look the most ridiculous. Maybe Sam Morsey at the front of the queue, but Andy thinks that would be a suitable punishment that I have to be the mascot.
I absolutely love that. Can we lock that in? Will Town let us do that? I'm sure they will.
And they'll be loving it because they've just finished outside the top 6 as well. So everything's going to feel great at that point. Just let Stewie walk out as a mascot, will you? Sam Morsey, he'll be fine with that after they've just finished 7th.
If they ultimately miss out on the final day of the season, that will roll over to the opening day of the following season, which will just add an extra layer to an already exciting 5th season in League One getting underway.
Maybe it would be best to actually delay that if they do finish outside the top 6, given that's going to be a pretty morose final game of the season. Maybe it's best to bring it to the first home game of the next season. Really get spirits lifted with Watson walking out as a mascot.
With your name on the back of the shirt.
If the club will facilitate it, I'll do it.
Superb. But they are obviously going to finish in the top 6, Stewie, so we don't need to worry about that. Right, one final thing to discuss, Hutchie, and it's very quick from you. We've been asked a couple of times on Mailbag in the last couple of weeks about who's going to win the Super Bowl. The American football season starts this weekend. Who's going to win? Who's going to be the top team? Green Bay going to win? Who are they going to beat?
Buffalo.
Okay. I'm saying 49ers beat Buffalo. That's what I'm saying. Friends, any other business before we move on? It's been a bit of an epic today. We're approaching 75 minutes of podcast gold, which has been up and down. It had some real highs. There's been some lows too, which is what we try and bring you on every show. Anything else to mention, boys? Who's on Fan Social, Roscoe, tonight?
Peachy, my start. Ben Diaf and Steve from good old Devon.
Good old Devon. You've always said it. You're going to be discussing your top beers, aren't you, friend?
Yeah, or the ultimate free taps at Portland Road. So when you rock out at Portland Road, what would be the 3 ultimate taps you'd be picking? Because that came a little bit of a talking point, didn't it, on Monday when I showed that disgusting 6 taps that were available in that one pub that someone shared.
I'm looking forward to hearing this chat. We're going to give our own next week when you've discussed it, and we can maybe get a bit of a vote going. Right then, friends, that brings us to the end of the show. All it leaves me then to say is please support our sponsor, Manscaped. Use the code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery on all that excellent stuff they've got there. And also support us across all our social medias, Kings of Anglia on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes if you'd like, because that helps people find us, discover us, and join the KOA Army. Ipswich Town host Cambridge United this weekend. We'll all be there. If you see us, come and say hello. If you're going, enjoy the game. If you're not, follow it all with us. And we'll be back on Monday to break it all down. Have a great weekend, friends, and we'll see you on the other side.